Welcome back. This is going to be part 2 of my Marvel vs. Capcom roster that I would put in a fighting game. Now, there's a reason why I split this into 2 parts. It's because of the Capcom side. I had, believe it or not, way more trouble coming up with Capcom characters who would be in this game over the Marvel characters. And part of it is because like the limitations that would more than likely be instilled on Capcom in order to have like a decently sized roster. Like they're not going to have like 700 characters in a game. So the reason why I bring this up is because I'm doing this list a little differently. I will still be mentioning 30 characters who I feel would be in a game, but along the way I'm also going to discuss characters who I think should be in a game. I've covered the Marvel side in a previous video. Be sure to check that out. With that being said, I'll get right to the potential roster. We'll be seeing the upcoming Marvel's Capcom game. Capcom side, that's a lot of words for a title. Let's basically start with like who I feel would be the 10 characters who are going to be in this game no matter what. Starting with Ryu from Street Fighter. Ryu is the bread and butter of all Capcom crossover games, honestly. He's essentially the poster boy for Capcom fighting games altogether. My only request is that he becomes a much better character overall, for I feel he generally lacks a little bit in versus games. And regardless of him being still fun to play, I will discuss something later that I think should be added to Ryu, but let's just move on for the sake of we know Ryu's going to be in the game. Number 2 is CHUN-LI from Street Fighter. Strongest woman in the world will 100% be returning. There's just no disputes here. She has Spinning Bird kicked her way into our hearts time and time again. She's going to be in the game. Why even try to dispute it? There's no point. Number 3 would be Monster Hunter from Monster Hunter. Now with the popularity of Monster Hunter these days, and as fun as the Monster Hunter games and character was and is to play, especially in Marvel Infinite, another no-brainer, I would love to see the same female character from Infinite return, perhaps with some added tweaks. Maybe like if they did like the Monster Hunter Rise version, that'd be kind of cool. She had like the grappling hook and shit like that. But overall, I feel like her moveset would be almost untouched, but just give her like the movement option with the grappling hook. I think that'd be make her a more interesting character. That way she's not too grounded, because again, she's a lot of fun to play in Marvel Infinite. And now that we have like more like weapons ever since, what was that, Marvel Infinite came out like 2016, so like we've had way more in Monster Hunter. You know, give her some cooler weapons, and that's about it. Number 4 is Frank West from Dead Rising. Frank who made his fighting game debut in Tatsunoko vs. Capcom, specifically the Ultimate All-Stars version that was a home release exclusive for the Wii. Game went to the Wii to die. Later refined in Marvel 3, I feel Frank is guaranteed to return. While Dead Rising 4 was critically panned by fans and critics alike, Frank is just still such a beloved character, and he's extremely popular, and I don't see him going anywhere whatsoever. He has covered wars, you know. Just do us all a favor and just keep him as a Marvel 3 version. I think Frank, the way he is in Marvel 3, especially compared to Infinite, I don't like his Infinite form that much, and he was such a weird character in Tatsu. Like, he completely different character. The way he is in Marvel 3 should just be what he is always. This might sound strange to put it this way, but I think Frank West is perfect. That iteration of the character is like the best way they could have made him. He can go from being the weakest character to the strongest character in a game in a single combo, which is cool. He doesn't have to change. Number 5 is Morrigan from Darkstalkers. Do I really need to explain this one? I mean, she's more so a versus character these days than she is Darkstalkers. Like, Morrigan has literally been in just about every single Capcom versus game, Tatsunoko included. Yeah, she's in Tatsu. I'm cool with her being a versus series staple, but I really want JEDAH to stay, and it's a shame Senko is just so bad in Marvel 3. I'm cool with just Morrigan and JEDAH. Number 6 is Dante from the Jackpot series. There's not a single reason as to why the main character of DMC, son of legendary Demon Sparta, wouldn't be in another Marvel game. He's too fun to use. He has loads of moves and weapons at his disposal, all packed into one single character. Before Marvel 3 ever came out, I've always wanted Dante in a fighting game. Thankfully we got him, and he's somewhat of a series staple now, and Dante is here to stay, and I don't think there's anyone could argue with that. Number 7 is Strider HIRYU from Strider. Strider is a unique character, for he's one of the few versus series characters that just did not originate from a Capcom game. However, his inclusion in the versus series, as well as seeing Zeku in Street Fighter V, who is another Strider. It's clear that the world of Strider is well integrated into Capcom gaming structure, and also potentially part of the Street Fighter universe. He's an amazing character, and he's one of my personal favorite characters to play. And I don't see him going anywhere anytime soon. Like, he's definitely gonna stay. Number 8 is Chris Redfield from Resident Evil. As much as I want Leon and potentially Carlos to be in Marvel's Capcom, I think Chris is gonna be the guy who we always see representing Resident Evil in Marvel. And while it did begin with Jill in MVC2, Chris being the true face of the series kind of grants him protection. What I would love to see personally from the character is like an upgraded moveset that reflects his appearance and moves in Resident Evil 8 and Village. I would love for Wesker to return, but I'll get to that later. And that's basically all I have to say. Number 9 is Sir Arthur from Ghosts and Goblins. I feel that Arthur will most definitely return in any new and upcoming Marvel game. Like, he's not going anywhere, guys. He's here to stay. He has truly solidified his place on the roster as a really fun and unique zoner, as well as capable of holding his own. While he might not be a fan favorite of Marvel 3 and the Infinite rosters, he's memorable and his series has gained a huge resurgence, and I think that alone is going to keep him in Marvel. Like, he's not going anywhere. Number 10, the final character who I feel guaranteed to stay would be Zero from Mega Man X. Zero is currently 3 for 3 for Capcom Versus games. Like, while he made his game debut in the Versus series in Tatsunoko vs. Capcom Ultimate All-Stars, and not only is he a fan favorite, and he is also my home screen. Yeah. In fact, my phone's red, and I named it Zero. Go figure. And he's also my lock screen. And I have a poster in the back. Ding, you see it? Love Zero. Anyway, Zero is a unique enough character with really cool abilities and movesets. I mean, he can literally pull anything from any Mega Man X game for him, even if they have to make small adjustments to him if they want. I would personally love to see Mega Man Zero, like the Mega Man Zero rendition of Zero, but I doubt that will ever happen. And unfortunately, it kind of sucks that the Mega Man Zero is essentially stuck behind two less than stellar fighting game experiences, which are Onimusha Blade Warriors and SVC Chaos. Now, will it never happen? It's hard to say. I mean, I'm sure they would just make a skin, and I'm okay with just a skin. Although I would like to see like the spear and the cyber elves as well. However, there's a reason why I don't think they will ever do that, and I think part of it is because of it being uniform, which I will go into more detail later, essentially with Mega Man X. I will talk about that later. Now, those are the characters who I feel they're safe. Like, they're not being eliminated from the roster. They flesh out Capcom's roster all too well. Whereas, like, Marvel vs. Capcom 1 and 2 was mostly, like, Street Fighter characters. They have definitely like, changed the way they have implemented these characters. They have shown that their other franchises are just as important, unless it's Breath of Fire. But we'll go into that later. Anyway, so now the next few entries of characters who I would love to see return or generally just make an appearance. And starting with that would be Beautiful Joe from Beautiful Joe. I feel this one's a no-brainer. Joe is a fan favorite from an extremely fun and unique game that is highly cherished by everyone who's ever played it. And he's very fun to use and has a really cool, unique moveset. It really sucked that he wasn't in Marvel Infinite, and I feel like the roster of Marvel Infinite for the Capcom side suffered due to the limitations of the Marvel side of that game. But because like we couldn't have Wolverine, Magneto, Storm, Sentinel, whatever, because we couldn't have the Fox characters at the time. Now Disney owns them, but that's not a problem. But back at the time, it was a problem. The roster for Capcom was so small, and they eliminated characters was because they were forced to eliminate characters from the Marvel side. So like for every Marvel character who couldn't be in a game, like Deadpool, they removed a Capcom character. And Joe was that one of those characters they definitely took out, along with AMATERASU, but we'll get to that one too. And I feel like we need to bring Joe back, and we need to hashtag that shit. Bring Joe back. Hashtag bring back Joe. Bring Joe back. No, bring Joe back sounds a little quirkier, and that fits the game a little bit more, I think. Number 12 is X from Mega Man X. Classic Mega Man has had its time to shine in the limelight in the Versus series games. It's just time we just pass the torch to Mega Man X. Mega Man X is a character, like, you might, and okay, for those who know none the wiser, who have never played Mega Man games, Mega Man X and Mega Man Classic are completely different games. Same characters and same foundations, but the games play nothing alike. Except for jump and shoot, everything else is completely different, including the boss fights, level design, literally everything. So for Mega Man X to be in Marvel Infinite was a really big deal to a lot of people like myself who are huge Mega Man fans, who have Mega Man posters on their wall over there in the back. It's just one of those things for me personally where Mega Man Classic, he just passed the torch. He's in Smash Brothers. Let him stay in Smash. Now let's take Mega Man X with all the cooler, doper abilities and movesets and boomerangs and all that shit. Like, so having him in Infinite was just awesome. And then to have X and Zero together, like it kind of would have sucked if it was classic Mega Man and Zero, because then we would have felt a little robbed. Like, why can't you just have Mega Man X and Zero? And so I think that's why Zero himself as a character won't be any other version of Zero, because of the fact that they want X and Zero to be uniform. So it were like Mega Man 00 and then the X from the Mega Man Zero series. Like that's how they're gonna do it. Because Capcom knows, like they're gonna want those two characters to be from the initial same series. They're going to. Like, trust me when I say that that's gonna be the case. We need Mega Man. Fight Mega Man, fight for everlasting peace. We felt his absence in Marvel 3, and it was amazing to have him Infinite, and unfortunately Infinite just is the game that it is, despite being an amazing game that I'll defend because the gameplay is very good, but I get why people dislike it. Moving on, number 13 will be JEDAH from Darkstalkers. JEDAH is a character I literally prayed for to be in a Marvel series and a Marvel vs. game for years, like for so long. In fact, he's my favorite character to play in Infinite, along with Black Widow. JEDAH was just one of those characters who just definitely fit the bill for a Marvel type of game. Marvel versus games have a very unique gameplay. Like, they're not the same as Street Fighter. Neutral's a whole different thing. Zoning is a whole different thing. Like, while there's always going to be fighting fundamentals, like fighting game fundamentals in a fighting game, every game's going to always have like a kind of shared core, like fundamental experience. The versus games have like just rules of their own. That's why they're called the versus games, and they're just so unique. And tag games have always kind of been more unique, but Marvel just always stood out that way. JEDAH was just that character who literally checked every single point of like, this is how you make a Marvel versus character. Like, that was JEDAH, and he fucking delivered. He's awesome. He's my favorite character in Infinite. He's to come back, bring back our Lord and Savior JEDAH, please, because it would just suck if he's not in the next Marvel game. And then we have Infinite, which is, again, is a great game. X and Zero are finally in a game together. And in JEDAH, if they're locked in Infinite, it's going to fucking suck so hard. And I really don't know any other way to put it. Number 14 is Spencer from Bionic Commando. While I'm not the biggest fan of Spencer's design, Bionic Commando reboot appearance, his gameplay more than enough makes up for it. The way Spencer plays, he's one of the most fun characters in any fighting game ever. Like, he's fun. The grappling hook, his OTGs, the way he can do like bionic arm, grapple, bionic arm, grapple, the way he can do level 3, his level 3 in Marvel 3, and then do grapple, bionic arm, X Factor, and do it again. Just, I get why my friends be when he plays him. My friend OG Koopa Troopa. Like, seriously, seeing the way people play Spencer, it's truly an art form. Frank West and Spencer are two characters in Marvel that I could watch hours upon hours of their gameplay and always be entertained. Spencer is perfect. Like, I give him the perfect rating. How I imagine they would play versus how they play is they check all the marks. Again, I don't like his reboot appearance, but I do like that he has the Rad Spencer costume, and that's good enough for me. Now, number 15 is Haggar from Final Fight, the coolest mayor on the earth, who should 100% return. He's fun, unique, and an amazing representative of a Capcom game that established an entire new era of Capcom, along with Street Fighter, like Final Fight and Street Fighter, because they're in the same universe. So Final Fight and Street Fighter truly changed gaming forever, and Haggar needs to stay, like, just by principle alone, because of what he did for Capcom as a company, like what Final Fight is for Capcom, and what it did to open up a whole new like wormhole into initiating like the final fight and into Street Fighter like sort of wave, and basically helping to create the fighting game genre. Final Fight is one of the most important video games ever made, and Haggar needs to stay. And while Zangief could fit the heavy like grappler role, It's just a lot nicer to have someone who represents a classic Capcom game, a franchise with such finesse and plenty of power drivers to boot. So yeah, HAGGAR stays. Moving on to my list, let's see. So essentially, I'm going to go through the rest of the list and just kind of talk about characters that could instead be in the game or replace those characters, so to speak. Number 16, I put Nemesis from Resident Evil 3. The way Nemesis plays in Marvel 3 and Infinite, he's very fun, very unique, and although he's a slow, heavy body character, he has a lot of mix-up game and opportunities. He's got a great assist type and he does high damage. So yeah, I think Nemesis is a character who should stay. And if we're gonna have to make room for a Resident Evil villain, like let's just say we have two, let's just assume that each game will have just 2 representatives from each game, each major franchise, right? If I had to replace Nemesis, I would replace Nemesis, believe it or not, with either 2 other villains from Resident Evil, which would be Jack Baker, Resident Evil 7. I think Jack Baker would be such a cool character. He would have lots of great lines, lots of cool things that he could do. He'd transform. And Jack Baker is just so iconic now, and he has like kind of solidified himself as like a really cool villain. But the other character who I could see easily replacing Nemesis or just being the 3rd Resident Evil rep, it should be obvious. It's Lady Dimitrescu. Like, come on, like, can you imagine how cool that would be? She had the crazy claws, like that would happen, and she would slash and have all her crazy lines. You drink your blood, replenish health, whatever, you know what I'm saying? Just, I think Lady D would be a cool character, and then she can go into like a crazy final like vampire form that she has and Village, like the boss fight form of her. And I can just see her like being like, I wouldn't say slow, but having like high damage, maybe just like short combos with cool mix-up options, and then have a crazy vampire transformation as like an install maybe. I wouldn't want that to be like a level 3 super. I would want that to be like a super where it's like an install, you're in that transformation, you're spitting shit at the opponent and just going crazy, and then it ends. I feel like that would be a cooler way to implement that, considering that it's a transformation that in the game is referenced that she can kind of go in and out of. But yeah, I think Lady D would be really cool, and she's tall. So she would be that, she would replace, I think if anyone would replace Nemesis, it should be her. That's all. Number 17 I have on the list is Phoenix Wright. I can't think of anybody else who would replace him. The closest like quirky, weird kind of character I could see replacing Phoenix Wright, if they rebooted Phoenix Wright, would be the character from Ghost Trick Phantom Detective. I don't want to really spoil the story of that game. I recommend it. I actually have it featured on my list of 8 hidden Capcom gems that you must play. I just don't want to spoil that game. I think you should go play it yourself, and you will get an idea of why I feel like that kind of character would be really unique. I would say just as unique as Phoenix Wright would be in a fighting game. But yeah, that's basically all I could say there. Again, I don't want to spoil the story of the game here, so go play it. You will understand what I mean, like when I say, oh yeah, that character would work pretty well. Number 18 is a character from a game that I really love, who I think lacks representation, who needs to be represented, is Samanosuke Akechi from Onimusha. I don't see why like Onimusha just isn't in Marvel already. Like, I mean, we had Soki from Dawn of Dreams on Tatsunoko vs Capcom, but that game is kind of questionable in terms of like what Onimusha is. And I feel like if you're gonna have a game representing the series, like you should have the character who is the embodiment of the series and is the closest to the first game, essentially. Now I can see them having Samanosuke and maybe having like Jubai as like a skin from Onimusha 2 for Samanosuke, since they have similar abilities and whatnot. However, there are licensing issues with that, considering that they use like real life actors for Onimusha to be like, they use their likeness for like, especially Onimusha 2 had like real actor likenesses, not licenses, sorry. And in Onimusha 3 you had Jean Reno like in that game, so that character just wouldn't be in it, even though his moveset's really cool. What they could do is just change their face altogether, but that's the only thing I could see them doing. Yeah, just doing that. But I think Onimusha deserves a representation, and Samanosuke would be the perfect character for that, and he can have all the cool weapons that he has, his Oni abilities, and then he can go into his crazy transformation, just fuck shit up. That'd be sick. Yeah, that's basically it. Number 19 is a character who should not have ever been taken out. A character who has no real replacement in terms of playstyle and abilities, and that is Amaterasu from Okami. Ami deserves her spot she's one of my favorite characters to play in Marvel 3, and it was really, it really sucked that she wasn't in Infinite. And Okami is such an important game to me and to a lot of people, and it's still a game that the creator himself is very fondly of. Like, he thinks Hideki Kamiya is really fond of all the Clover Studio games that were released when that was a thing. I think it's a very important game, and there's a lot of ways to play it now, thankfully, thanks to the HD release for like PC and it's on PC and consoles. I think it's even on the Switch. Amaterasu should have never been removed. She's a cool character with a great assist. She kind of needs assist to be really good on her own, like if you're gonna have her as a point character, but her assist was really good. Now, number 20 is a character that I could live without. I'll explain why, even though this character to me is very important, and that's Akuma. Akuma, or Goki from Street Fighter. Now, the reason why I could live without Akuma in a Marvel game, part of it is because while I would want him in the game, I feel like what they could just simply do to make Ryu better is just to give him an evil Ryu form, just how they did in Marvel 2 with Sakura and Ryu, how they had their evil forms, and just basically make him really good. Just instead of just having, like, because in Marvel 3, Ryu and Akuma are in a game, but it's like if you're gonna play Ryu, you might as well just play Akuma. Ryu just kind of feels like a second note in Marvel 3, and he's not very good at all in Marvel Infinite. In my opinion, I feel like if you're going to not have Akuma in the game, just give Ryu all the Akuma shit with like an evil Ryu form. The reason why I say it is because there are other Street Fighter characters who I feel deserve some kind of representation outside of Ryu and Chun-Li, and if say we're gonna limit it to 3 Street Fighter characters, I would rather see, now hear me out, these are 3 characters who I will list in order who I think would be very good. Number 1 I'm going to list is Rashid. If you play Street Fighter 5, then you probably already agree with me. Rashid is a character in Street Fighter 5 who is just kind of nutty all over the place, and in general I think he's a really, Rashid's an awesome character in Street Fighter 5. Like, not just his playstyle, but just himself. Like, he himself is a very cool character, very likable, and I think he's a character that his moveset alone with the tornadoes and the wind, I can see him easily being in Marvel. Like, I really could. In fact, I would even say maybe he would replace Chun. However, they were never going to replace Chun, and that'd be a crime. The other Street Fighter character who I think should come back to Marvel would be C.VIPER. I think C.VIPER in Marvel 3 is super underrated. I feel she's very good, and more people should use her in Marvel 3, because if you play Street Fighter 4, like, C.VIPER can just control the entire screen. She can just do it, man. And so I just feel like, again, she was one of those characters who just kind of effortlessly worked in Marvel. Final Street Fighter character who I think should come back, return in Street Fighter, in Marvel, should be Bison. I think Bison, who you might know as Dictator if you've never heard the name Bison, I think Bison would be an awesome character to be in a Marvel game. There's already mods actually for Marvel 3 where they've implemented Bison, and he's insane. I never thought about Bison being in Marvel again until I watched the Marvel 3 mods. So go ahead and watch that Marvel 3 gameplay. I'll have some of the footage here, but I'll also put it down below and you'll see what I mean. Bison would work really well in Marvel. Now, number 21 is NERO from Devil May Cry, specifically Devil May Cry 5. Now, NERO made his debut in Devil May Cry 4, but his Devil May Cry 5 rendition is a whole nother beast, especially when you beat the game and you unlock his, like, actual double trigger form. I feel that NERO would be a really cool character to have, and granted, you might have Spencer already with the grapple and stuff like that, especially now with Devil May Cry 5. I can see NERO have the ability to switch out his arms. I hate to use this as an example, but it's the best example I could think of. Similar to how like Min in Smash Brothers changes out her arms. So that's why I think NERO would work perfectly well. I thought about for a while about the Double Bringer itself, but I think that's something that should only be when you activate his double trigger. And on the plus side, it would be really cool to have the Devil Trigger song from Devil May Cry 5 in the game. So moving on to number 22 is a character, one of my fucking favorite characters ever, who I think should come back, probably wouldn't come back, is TRON from Mega Man Legends. TRON is one of my favorite characters to play in Marvel 2 and Marvel 3. I love her. I'm a huge Mega Man Legends fan. I'm not ashamed to admit that. And so I think TRON should come back because I love her. I really don't have any other reason as to why she would come back. But I've always just loved the Mega Man Legend games, as bad as they play. But I just love the story and the world. And TRON is such a cool character. Granted, I could live without Tron Bonne and Marvel. If we're gonna have like a mech suit character, I think that character who should get representation, it should be Dr. Wily. I feel like Dr. Wily and Tron Bonne can be very interchangeable characters, and I would love to see Dr. Wily be in like a full suit, like shooting missiles and summoning them out like robot masters and stuff like that. I think that'd be a really cool character. Like, you see why I was saying how this list is structured a little differently, because this is more so of like Capcom characters who are interchangeable with other Capcom characters. Again, Tron Bonne or like even just Dr. Wily. I would be set with either. I'd be okay with either of those, and I would guarantee I'd be playing them. Moving on next would be Firebrand from Ghosts and Goblins or Gargoyle's Quest. It's weird because like Firebrand again, he made his debut as a character in Ghosts and Goblins. He didn't really like have his own like time to shine until like Demon's Crest. It said Gargoyle's Quest, unless it's a Japanese name. I'm pretty sure the game's called Demon's Crest. Anyway, Firebrand's one of my favorite characters. I love Firebrand. He is a staple on one of my teams in Marvel 3 and Infinite. I love his flight. I love his mix-up options. I like the spit fireball thing. I like everything that he does. He's just one of my favorite characters to play. I love his utilities. I think Firebrand deserves to stay in the game, and I can't think of anybody who would replace him. Number 24 on the list, a character who should stay in the game no matter what, Sigma from Mega Man X. Sigma in Marvel Infinite is insanely cool. I love playing Sigma. He's very fun to play. Also, like he's just great. And it's also nice to just have X-Zero and Sigma. And I feel like if we're gonna have just 3 Mega Man characters, those are the perfect 3 Mega Man characters. Now, these next few characters are characters should either come back or be implemented again in some way, or just deserve a chance. Now, I put number 25, Jin SAOTOME from Cyberbots. I feel like Jin is a character who people remember the most and really cherish from Marvel 1 and Marvel 2 specifically, whether you use him as an assist or as a character. He's crazy, and I know Justin Wong has really been using him a lot in recent times. Jin is a character I think deserves to come back and have a second chance because he kind of has become a Marvel character at this point. People who never played Cyberbots, you don't actually control Jin or any of the characters. They are pilots of mechs. So in a sense, in a weird way, Jin is kind of like Marvel vs. Capcom's like Captain Falcon, where like he just is completely original moveset. He has never fought like that in any of the games. He has that like Captain Commando status of just being like a rememberable, cool character people cherish. I think Jin should come back and should stay. All right, number 26 is a character is one of my personal favorites, but again, I'm going to interchange him with a few. I'll mention the characters I would rather have outside of him. If I didn't have him, I wouldn't mind the other ones. I brought the Fire representative. Honestly, like I would rather Breath of Fire in the game than anything else. Like I don't care if we have 2 Ryus in this game. Come on, just give us Ryu from Breath of Fire, or even like Nina or someone, or Kat. Either of those characters would work so well and be very cool. Let's just say the number 26 slot is just Breath of Fire. Either Ryu, Kat, or Nina. I'm okay with any of those. Let's take Ryu specifically from Breath of Fire 3. Put that into Marvel, and we got the characters. Number 27, who I feel should be in the game, is Albert Wesker. Like, he's so good. He's one of those characters that is perfect the way he is. Wesker, to me, is just as memorable as a villain, as like Chris is as like a protagonist, but then again, you see what I'm saying? Like, number 27, let's just say number 27 is like, here's a Resident Evil villain. Pick Wesker, pick Lady D, pick someone, anyone. Again, this was a really hard list for me to make. Number 28, this is a character who I believe should be in the game because the game is not just an underrated gem, but it's also a character who I feel would have very unique properties in terms of playstyle, and that is ZACK and WIKI. I've covered this game in my hidden Capcom gems. ZACK and WIKI should be in the game. It's just that simple. If you actually play the game and see how and it's a point and click adventure game, and if you can make Phoenix Wright work, you can make ZACK and WIKI work. But ZACK and WIKI actually get items and abilities that would work as fighting game moves, especially like the little snake grapple and like the flute. You can like put people to sleep, and like the bell and just everything else that you can do. I think it'd be really cool to have a character like based off gestures. That's why I love Phoenix Wright so much, because I like that he's just gestures from the Phoenix Wright games. So I think ZACK and WIKI would be another character like that. Number 29, this is where it gets really hard. Here's a character I feel I would love to come back. Would be SONSON or AMINGO. Bring one of those back. I think AMINGO would be the character people want more, but I feel like SONSON still has a lot of unique opportunities. Resident Evil does not need 4 reps. And I'm saying this as a huge Resident Evil fan. I am a die-hard Resident Evil fan, like, but it doesn't need that many reps. I just, as much as I am a Resident Evil fan, I'm more of a Capcom fan, and I would want a character like SONSON or AMINGO to be in the game, or Cut the Commando even. So like someone from Marvel 2, bring them back. But number 30 is a game. Number 30 is a character who I think most people will agree with me on this, who should come back, who should have been in Marvel 3, who isn't in Marvel 3, who was in Marvel 2, and who somehow made an appearance in Street Fighter 5 as an unlockable costume. That is the Ruby Heart. Just, that's it. Like, I'm not even gonna try to justify it. Ruby Heart is a character who needs to come back. Like, she is someone who has people really have gained affection for and really love even now today. And while people have been kind of playing her again in Marvel 2 and really exploring with her and all of her options, I feel like she's someone who just deserves that kind of spot. Like, she is really cool, and I don't see why she just wasn't in Marvel 3 or even Infinite. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me that they would just can her that way. But thankfully, with the way Capcom's like fighting game division has been going recently, especially when you put someone like Akira or, you know, Batsu or something like that in the fighting game again, like Street Fighter, that's just cool. But let me know down below, who would you like to see in either Marvel vs. Capcom or any kind of versus game from the Capcom side? Like, who would you like to see, even if it's Family Matters versus Capcom, whatever like meme roster you have, share it down below, because I love to discuss this. This is fun. I've had a lot of fun doing this. So please let me know down below what you think, how you feel. Do you like this list? If not, comment. I don't care. You can like, subscribe. What matters to me is the discussion. I want to just talk to people. Tell your loved ones that you love them. As always, peace.
Select your hero.